Hello, everybody, and welcome to the review show for Young Justice here at Absolutely Marvel and DC. It is myself, Dan, with Kadir, or
Hassan Kadir.
What's up? I've been practicing so this morning to go, okay, this is how you say his last name, and apparently I completely forgot your first name.
Like, you're fine. You know what? It's all good.
Did I even say it right?
You know what? You did, but there's no real pronunciation to it, if we're being honest here. Kadir's like every other brown person's name is Kadir, but like spelled with Q's and mine's with a K. So like, whatever works for you works for me.
Anyway, today we are going to be talking about the third episode in the Zatanna part of Young Justice. This one, I believe I did the quick summary last time, so I'm going to let you do it.
Oh my gosh.
What happened in this episode?
So, you're putting me on the spot as if I didn't watch this at 12 o'clock the night it dropped. No, so it's an episode where Zatanna and the rest of her little magic squad goes to the Tower of Fate to get help from Nabu. And Nabu, being the crusty old Dr. Fate that he is, says, are they really prepared? And he puts them through trials. So you get to see Tracy 13 go through her insecurities. You get to see Mary Marvel go through her insecurities. And you get to see, I think it's Khaled, right? Khaled, I don't know what his last name is, but go through his insecurities. And it's a very interesting episode with lots of like religious overtones, both in Christianity and Islam, and it's super duper cool. But throughout their trials, you get a little bit of, Tracy is worried that she's not good enough, not the outsiders exist, and she couldn't accept that opportunity because she still wanted to be a private hero. Mary Marvel, turns out, Benny talked about this a lot last episode, we get the reveal of why she's so scared to use her powers, because it turns out she still has her Captain Marvel Shazam powers. And then Greg Wiseman tweeted further about that, which I can elaborate on as to like what he says the backstory on that is.
Okay.
But that, and then with Khaled, you get to see his religious struggle between being a Muslim, a doctor, and a magician, because none of those things line up in theory, and it was a really poignant way to do it. And you get to see a little Zataro scene, who voiced by the amazing Nolan North, who's doing Superman and Superboy on the show, and he's Zataro, which you wouldn't even think that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the episode wraps up on a note of what, for us cat owners, real heartbreaking, even though obviously it's a fucking demon, so like not that sad, but
let's be honest, all cats have a little demon inside them.
You know that's correct. But yeah, the child snaps Clarion's familiar, and Tico the cat has died, and you get to see Clarion sob, and you see the look of horror in the face of Dr. Fate as well as the Young Justice team inside of the Tower of Fate.
Yeah, honestly, so before we go in, what was your opinion of the episode?
So this whole Zatanna arc, because I'm rewatching the show with my friend right now, or rewatching this season with my friend right now, has been really interesting. I like the Vandal Savage backstory side plot. But at this point, you said third episode of the Zatanna arc, and I just realized it's not over yet, and we're still going in it.
Yeah, and we still have, looks like 2 more episodes of the Zatanna stuff.
Wow. Okay. But I don't dislike it because I like these characters. They're doing really interesting stuff. But part of me really wishes that we got like another. Not that I liked it last season, but a Vandal Savage centric episode just to get all of this backstory out of the way. But I guess it's interesting because Nabu is the one. Dr. Fate gave the the voiceover this episode and gave his history, which is slightly different. But yeah, I just want to get the ball rolling a little bit. I just rewatched part of the Artemis arc with my friend last night, and I'm like, God, that was just boom, 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 snapping to it. We're getting it done. And this has been a little bit slower, but overall, I'm enjoying myself on some level. It's just been a little bit slower than I'd like it to be.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with the slowness, because this one in particular, it felt a lot shorter as well, and I think it's because of the pacing of it and just kind of whenever it goes to the Vandal Savage backstory, they always slow down a lot to tell the story of what's going on, which contextual, it works so well. Like, it illustrates kind of the patience that Vandal Savage as a character has because he's been alive for so long, and just going through and really emphasizing the important bits of his backstory. But it still is a lot slower, and that intermingled with the different like short stories pseudo short stories with each of the different younger magicians. It definitely gave it that slower vibe. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I did enjoy it. I would love to hear the expansion on the Mary Marvel stuff, because I feel like there could have been more told during that. And it was kind of hard for me personally, because I don't have the best memory in existence. And so I couldn't fully remember what had happened previously with Shazam and the Shazam family. And I thought it was kind of odd that the way that they're talking about her was that she kind of took on that leadership role in the family, and that without stepping down cold turkey, she was never going to give it up. Kind of that, no, basically very Black Adam-esque of, no, the superhero is who I am. The other side does not matter. I don't need to change back. And it kind of gave off some vibes in that manner. But I would love to hear what the guy tweeted out about it that might maybe fill in the gaps that I'm kind of missing.
Good old Greg talked about how he had a Mary Marvel arc or storyline or an episode planned out for season 2. But in season 2, they went from that 26 episode order to a 20 episode order. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the things on the cutting room floor. Both Mary Marvel, and I think his name's Freddie. Do you know anything about Shazam kids? I don't know their names.
It is Freddie. I don't know his last name.
Mary Marvel and Freddie are both introduced. Mary Marvel goes by the Sergeant, and she was part of the team between seasons 1 and 2, and was a big part of everything. But it was exactly that the power is so intoxicating, and becoming the Sergeant made her stop being Mary. She stopped living her life as Mary Marvel, and Billy found the balance between it, because he's always been better at that, but with her, she wasn't able to do it. So she swore off using those powers so that she could live life as Mary Marvel, because she just wasn't able to handle doing both. And now she's able to tap into those powers via mysticism. But I'm very interested to see where this goes. I like this character. I think it's a cool concept. I think all the Shazam kids in general have been a really cool concept. Young Justice came out in that limbo just before just before the New 52 ended, and then slowly into Rebirth. No, it was 2011. 2011 was when Rebirth started, right? Not
2011 was New 52 started.
Okay, so right when Young Justice season 1 came out right before the New 52, and then season 2 was afterwards. So there's a lot of tones as to like what they grabbed from what. So the Shazam kids, from what I understand, it's very much a New 52 concept. It wasn't something that was introduced back in the day. So they integrated it way later down the road, and they didn't get to fully do it because they had storyboards and everything planned out. But Cartoon Network sucks, so they didn't get to do it. And here we are now getting a little bit of Mary Marvel. Super interesting.
Okay, my memory is not super terrible. There wasn't much done with her.
No, there was a 10 episode Mary Marvel arc. You don't remember that? They literally went into the entire Shazam family. It was even in live action, weirdly.
It's like Young Justice, the Marvel family. How did you miss that? Okay.
I'd pay to see that. So
I actually, based on the way that they showed the character in this, I actually would love to see that, or I hope we see some flashbacks that maybe show what their plan was during that time that they didn't get to use.
Yeah,
I
would love to see that. And, fingers crossed. We're still #Renew Young Justice. That's still going. They haven't gotten the renewal. They haven't gotten the green light yet. So
with this one, I feel like they're going to have to get a little bit further in the season, just because
they're going to need Nightwing. They need Nightwing.
They do. They need Nightwing to really lift it up and see what they're going to do with this. I'm assuming after episode 13 is going to be the mid-season break.
Yeah, and I think it comes back later in 2022 than it usually would, if I recall. Okay. I don't know. It's but look, this show has been incredible. The new character they introduced that I knew nothing about. I literally have no comic background. Benny told me he is Dr. Fate later in the comics.
Yes, Khalid. Yes, he was. I can't remember. I think it was during Rebirth that he was the new Dr. Fate, which works because I believe Dr. Fate currently in the show is Zatara, who took it over and like made the deal so that Zatanna didn't become Dr. Fate. Okay.
And he's aged dramatically in the 10 years of being in Fate. Because, wow, holy cow, that man is old now. But yeah, I'm so interested in this character. I had no idea about it. I grew up Muslim, and then somewhere in the middle I became a Christian for a girl, and then I'm kind of just an agnostic that just exists in the world. But I have a really healthy appreciation for both religions, and it was so interesting to see, because I grew up with he literally in that scene he does the Islamic call to prayer, it was beautiful to hear in Young Justice. It was so interesting. And then later Zataro does what is it called, the Lord's Prayer or something like that, and that's something that you hear a lot every Sunday at most churches you go to. And it was so interesting that like you have the Ankh behind Naboo, the Dr. Fate sigil, and then he just does the Son, the Father, the Holy Spirit, and then like all of a sudden the cross appears behind him in that void. And I was like, this is visually such an interesting thing that they're doing here. And I don't know how Young Justice is bold to tackle a storyline like this.
Oh,
because
yeah.
It's terrifying. Because there was an end tag to an episode where Halo talks about how Gabrielle Dow, her former self, was a Muslim and why she can't bring herself to take off the hijab and that she wants to explore that further. It's insane because she's like a walking, talking God.
Right.
She is God, lowercase g, but still God, and but they touched on that. I'm like, wow, they're really going to go there. And then this episode, they went there. I heard the Islamic call to prayer that I used to hear like in mosques when I was growing up in Young Justice, which is just such a weird experience. And having him be Dr. Fate, like I had no idea. I'm gonna check the Comic Story channel and see if you guys covered this, and if not, I need to just find it online because this is interesting.
It was if I remember correctly, it was kind of like just a short 5-issue miniseries that explains him becoming Dr. Fate and stuff like that. It is a good read. So since that's actually really cool that you do have a history with that. So you're gonna say that they did a good job touching on this without like disrespecting. I don't think
they crossed any lines. I think we somehow managed to do this without offending literally everybody in existence. It was poignant. I think that more religious people are going to have an issue with it regardless, because I mean you're bringing magic into two faith-based religions, and obviously it's suspension of disbelief. It's a comic book universe, so like let's not get too crazy with it. But I think some people will be upset, but most people won't be. They didn't do the more like they used the word jihad, which means inner conflict, but the way Western media and the news have portrayed it for years, it means holy war. It just it is just Muslim war, but it means inner conflict. And he used the term jihad in such a beautiful way. I've literally never heard it used that way, or I haven't heard it used that way outside of, I've been to a couple Arab countries and like had people who speak Arabic say it and they use it differently. But in the Western world, it's literally like the Crusades. Like it never comes up it's the Crusades or terrorism. It never comes up in anywhere else. So I was like, God, this show did the thing. Like they just keep doing the thing every week.
They're really bold, because like speaking of the bold that I want to dive into on this next bit, the Beast Boy stuff.
I told Benny. I told him.
I was listening in the background of that one because I was recording for you guys, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. That I believe it was you that was talking about whether or not they're going to do a Beast Boy suicide thing, and in this one, we might be leaning either there or drug abuse or something like that, because we've got Beast Boy constantly asleep, looks terrible, has pills and pill bottles just sprawled across his dresser. I'm not sure if we're going to go in the suicide or not. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, with the direction that things are going, with the other hot topics that they have touched on in this show. But is it just me, or are all the other superheroes that are a part of the Outsiders, part of the team that are working around him, is it just me, or are they kind of acting a little out of character for superheroes? Considering, like, I feel like they're looking at it and like talking to him as if it's just a Beast Boy's being lazy. Beast Boy doesn't want to do this. Like it's almost like they're approaching it in less of a empathic response, but more of like a, what's going on with you, dude? Like, is that just me, or
no? I think weirdly those scenes have not had enough breathing room because they're obviously going to have an entire episode. Like they've been doing this, they're going to have. I think
with with the name of episode 13, I think it's going to be coming.
What's the name of episode 13?
Well, spelled backwards. Okay, quick side note.
Course. Yep.
Is it just me, or whenever they put her, I always have it with the subtitles on. I always pause it and read it backwards to see what she's actually saying.
Yep.
Well, the name of episode 13 backwards is Break My Heart.
Oh, no.
So
this show can't keep doing that. You can't keep getting away with this. God.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to be related to the Beast Boy, if it's going to be related to Zatanna.
The titles have all been tying into the main characters. I don't think it's
they
really.
have
Beast Boy
been?
has been the background the entire time.
But like with a name like that, you know that something big's going to be coming. And
man, I just, I agree with you. They've been acting a little bit out of character, but they're not showing us the people that we've spent the most time with emotionally. Like Cassie's probably the character we're seeing the most, that we've seen the most often in the Young Justice universe. But even her character like has had maybe a quarter of an arc back in season 2 and hasn't done much of anything since then. It would be different if it was showing it from the perspective of like Impulse or Blue Beetle or anybody else that's on the Outsiders team.
well, see, that is another aspect of that none of these people who are core to Beast Boy's history have even checked on him.
Yeah, well, and the idea is that he's
or at
pushing
least
them
that
away,
we've
I
been
think.
told, I should say.
I'm assuming that they're pushing, like he's ignoring everybody's calls, and the world. I mean, they make the world feel really lived in. Like back in the Artemis episode, Barbara literally says the Bat family's in the middle of an all-out gang war with the Penguin and Two-Face or something like that. Right. So you get a line like that like there's stuff is happening for all these people at all times, but I don't think that anyone was aware of how hard this is going to hit Beast Boy because they weren't aware that he was still reeling from Brion. Brion leaving the team really messed him up because that was his first failure, in the words of, I think it was Saturn Girl pretending to be Miss Martian in those episodes, where she's like, that was your first loss in your new family. And Beast Boy has lived an incredibly heartbreaking life. I mean, his mom died, then his adopted mom died, then he lived with, the team. Wally dies on him. Before then, he had to grieve Artemis's loss. Artemis didn't die, but he had to grieve her loss. Then he, it's just sad. It's just sad altogether. And losing Connor, and Connor's been in his life since he was a kid. Because they don't show a lot of the background, because obviously there's a lot going on. But that Superboy has been in the lives of all of these characters for 10 years now. And it's 10 of their formative years. For a lot of them, they're so young. And Superboy was on the Outsiders too. Like, he was a public hero. We didn't actually get to see that, which I'm sad about because I was excited. I was assuming eventually they were gonna put Connor in a monkey suit, even though he hates it, because he's a public hero now. So I think it's a suicide arc more than anything else. I think we touched on drugs with Roy years past, and obviously that was on Cartoon Network, so it was just tapped on.
Right.
But I think with this one, it's just. That's what's happening with him. I don't think he's gonna. It's just sad. It breaks my heart. Breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I actually completely forgot about some of those because even in the first couple, they touch on the fact that he has not shared this with anyone, of like how he truly feels, like the guilt that he has internalized, and with how well they have touched some of these heavier topics. This is going to sound bad. I kind of do hope they touch on that. I feel like it's one of those topics it's hard to talk about, but it's out there and it needs to be talked about. Yeah. Like mental health, especially in today's day and age, and even more so over the past couple of years with everyone in like the quarantines and stuff. Mental health has become one of those big topics, and I think they have the capacity to do it well. I want them to explore it. I'm not necessarily saying I want Beast Boy to kill himself.
No. And I do not think they will have that happen. I think that if they're going to do a suicide storyline, these writers want to show you hope. They want to show you that you'll make, just like they did a parental or like a child abuse storyline with Harper Row and her brother.
Yep.
And now Harper Row and her brother are happily living with Greg Weisman. I think Snapper Carr is voiced by Greg Weisman, at the house with Superboy, or not Superboy's gone from the house, obviously, with the Greg
farm.
Weisman, the farm, the little farmhouse. So yeah, I mean, they've touched on so many serious topics, especially since I don't know if you remember that child abuse episode, but it literally ended with a phone number for who you call if you see something like that. So having an episode that ends with a suicide hotline, which, you know, it would be interesting to say the least. And this show has done, I mean, they're handling religion the way they are. They're doing this show is too smart for its own good.
It really is.
Because they do not get the credit they deserve. This needs to be DC's like premier property that they shove money into. They have huge releases for it. They do release parties and all that stuff. But it's the thing they're like, we don't know. It doesn't make money. It is so incredible. For me, Young Justice rivals the MCU in my brain. As far as like when I think of these properties that are telling these really incredibly enriched, well thought out superhero storylines, instead of like these movies, which I don't mind them. I like some of them, but like they're like candy. They're good for 2 seconds, but if you think too hard, they don't make a lot of sense. Young Justice has been weaving this narrative for 10 years now, and it's so well told, and they clearly have a mission. They're setting out to tell something. I don't think I've ever felt the DC universe make such cohesive sense. Like Anti-Life, Darkseid, Vandal, Savage, like all of these things, how metahumans were created, how they're related to each other. Like they've never felt so interwoven in a narrative that makes perfect sense until this show. And I'm so excited for what they're going to do with this. I'm excited. I'm going to be heartbroken to see Beast Boy go through that. I've been sad watching him go through it now.
Oh, yeah. Like every time they show Beast Boy, it just breaks your heart. Because I feel like we've all kind of maybe not been to that extreme, but we've all had those periods in our lives.
I've been there, and it looks similar. It looks so similar, like the constantly sleeping and stuff like that. Like it's one of those things now that if I sleep in too much, even though I don't have things to do the next day, I'm a YouTuber, I'm not that busy some of the time. When I work, I have to work a lot. But when I don't have to work, I won't sleep in because it makes me think of how my body felt back then. And seeing Beast Boy go through it, and this show touched on things like they had Superman explain death to his son. I rewatched that scene last night. Yeah. And that was incredible. And then having Superman look back up at the camera or at Lois and say, well, I'm glad Johnny's okay, because I'm not, with tears streaming down his face. The most human Superman has ever been. I think Ben said it, or maybe you said it. This is the first loss this Superman has probably ever gotten, because he has Ma and Pa Kent. He hasn't, maybe he lost Lana Lang or somebody along the way, but he has them. So this is that had to be the most impactful death of this story. The story, Young Justice, starts with Superboy coming out of the pod. Like, it literally happens because of him, and we've lost him. So, we're done talking. We stopped talking about Zatanna a while ago.
Right, yes. Anyway, I wanted to touch on that because that has been a big background story that has been going on, so I did want to touch on it. Yeah. But anyway, we are reaching that time that we should be wrapping up. We're at 24 minutes, so...
We are.
Thank you guys so much.
Podcast.
I know, right? Thank you guys so much for listening and watching today. We appreciate you guys. Hassan, where can they find you?
You can find me at Hassan Kader on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and at youtube.com/Bad Days. I run a podcast, but this week we are reviewing Spider-Man No Way Home, which if you haven't seen that, go see it. I don't know what you're doing. You can't get on the internet if you haven't seen it, so get on that, guys.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, and we will catch you all next time with the next review of Young Justice.